The Sun Devils learned a lot in their loss against Texas Tech, and the grades for this week's game reflect just that.
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Wherever you get your shows, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get that update whenever we post new content. You can stay in touch with that content by following me on Twitter at RichieBrats36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, it is once again that time of the week to grade the Sun Devils. And we have been spoiled the first three games of the year. The Sun Devils have been very, very good. They've gotten A's mostly across the board with varying positions. You've had no worse than a couple of C grades. I mean, for the most part, ASU has really executed very well. But as we know, against Texas Tech, this team was humbled a little bit. And we talked about that yesterday, that the team was humbled. So if you didn't check that episode out, go ahead and check that out, see what I had to say there, because it's a lot more detailed. This team had a lot that they learned from this game. And today's grades are gonna reflect that, because it wasn't a highly graded game across the board. I don't think I had any A's. No, I did not have any A's to hand out in this game. I had a handful of B's, but as you'll see, a lot of it is reflective of, they got exposed a little bit, they got humbled, this, that, and the other. So as this typically goes, we're going to talk about the offense. We're going to break down each of the five main positions. Then we're going to talk about defense. We're going to talk about the three levels of the defense. And then we wrap it up with the coaches, which will include Kenny Dillingham and the two coordinators, and then the overall grade for this game. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop right into it. Starting at the quarterback position, I gave Sam Leavitt a C- here. I gave him a 73 out of 100. Now, one of the things that I called out, and this isn't a Sam Leavitt problem. To me, this is more of a coaching problem. I want to see designed runs for Sam Leavitt. This is a true dual threat quarterback. He has been a legitimate weapon as a runner this year. He has 180 rushing yards on 39 carries. Keep in mind, he's been sacked, I want to say 7 times right in front of me. He's been sacked 7 times. He's averaging 4.6 yards per carry. Despite that, he's probably closer to 6 yards a carry if you take away those sack yards. He's also got 4 rushing touchdowns just in the last 3 weeks. This is a dual threat quarterback, and I want to see them incorporate that more. We didn't really see that this week. In fact, some of the times that Sam Leavitt was trying to improvise a little bit kind of ended up in negative plays for him. And even though he was only sacked 1 time against Texas Tech, it still wasn't the best performance for Leavitt in terms of the pocket presence, which I know is where a lot of people want to see him develop, and rightfully so. He is a quarterback. You want to see him be comfortable enough in the pocket that he can deliver to strikes down the field. Speaking of delivering strikes down the field, once again, the accuracy is something that we need to continue to work on here. 22 of 38 in this game. That is a 57.9% completion rate, roughly, for rounding up. It's not great. And there's still struggles with the consistency on touch throws. The deep ball is still not there. And we're a month into the season. You are going into a bye week, so you can continue to work on it. I don't know that it's going to be there this year. And that's not a bad thing for a redshirt freshman quarterback and a first-time offensive coordinator at the program. Like it's all brand new. So that's fine that it's not there. You just need the consistency at every other level of the field, and that's where you need to see Levitt continue to improve. There's also some ill-advised decisions, and he threw an interception in this game, and there was a lot of passes that you kind of sat there and you were like, I don't think that should have been your decision. So you just got to keep working on that. It wasn't the worst game in the world for Sam Levitt, not at all. There's just stuff to build on here, and it's about the same stuff that we've been talking about, which is why I don't want to grade him too low, but it's still a lower grade. 73 out of 100, give him a C-. Running back, I'm giving him a B+. This is the highest grade that I have, an 88 out of 100. Once again, it's a Cameron Scadaboo show, which, I mean, it kind of has to be because you're really banged up in the backfield right now with the Carlos Brooks and Raleek Brown not playing, but Kyson Brown not really involved. 3 carries for 9 yards. They need to get healthy, and that's not something that they control. It has nothing to do with the grade here. The thing that I want to see is this group to get healthy so you can start divvying up carries a little bit more evenly. Cameron Scadaboo had 18 carries in this game. The Sun Devils had 30 total carries, 29 if you take away the sack. So he is getting bell cow opportunities, and he's making the most of them for what he can do. The offensive line has struggled. We'll talk about them in a minute. 18 carries, 60 yards. He did get in the end zone twice. He's doing the most with what he can. It's just right now you're very limited in what you're trying to do, and you're not getting anyone else involved. And again, the injuries are easily the biggest part of that. You're missing 2 of your top 4 running backs. It's going to hurt you. No pun intended. We'll get there. I just hope that we will see that hopefully sooner rather than later. But of course, I want to continue to emphasize we are not in control of the injuries. Scadaboo is grinding out yards right now, though, with an offensive line that just isn't playing up to its potential. Scadaboo is finding ways to get those chunk yards still. Even when he's tackled in the backfield, he finds ways to fall forward. It's remarkable. Very rarely are you going to get Scadaboo for a loss of yards. He's going to find a way to get back to the line of scrimmage or turn it into a 3-yard pickup somehow, some way. He's a stud. He also had a big day receiving. He went over the century mark with 117 yards on 6 receptions. Pretty good, including a 66-yard reception. He is a beast in the passing game. Kyson Brown also had a good day as a receiver. 3 catches, 23 yards. That was 3rd on the team for receiving yards. He was tied for 3rd in receptions for the team. Good day from Kyson Brown and from Cameron Scadaboo in the passing game. Scadaboo did everything he could to be successful on the ground. At the end of the day, when you score 2 touchdowns, you can't ask for much more. 88 out of 100 here, B+. Wide receiver, I'm giving him a little benefit of the doubt here, and I'm giving him a B-. I am going a really low B- though, and I'm giving him an 81 out of 100. The really awesome thing to see in this game was Xavier Guillory's breakout. Guillory has not done much this year, and I think it's more indicative of the offense than it is Guillory because he's your wide receiver 1 on the depth chart. You would think he would be more involved. That hasn't been the case. In this game, he was more involved, and he produced 6 catches for 74 yards. His long was 19 yards. He was a really good option in the intermediate game, which is where you want to see ASU start to develop a guy, is they want to run Jordan Tyson deep, and that's not really working right now. And it's leading to Tyson having inconsistent performances, which is another thing that factors into this grade. But Guillory had a great day, and that's really what carried this grade for me. Because if Guillory doesn't do what he does, this is a much lower grade. You also have the fact that you've been waiting for somebody else to get involved and find a way to break out, and Guillory did that. So Guillory and Tyson combined for 8 receptions and 107 yards. No touchdowns, along of 27 from Tyson, along of 19 from Guillory. They did solid work. The only other receiver that caught a pass was Melcon Stovall, 2 catches, 13 yards. Not the best day, but they got it done. 81 out of 100, B minus. Tight end, I'm going 75 out of 100 here. Shimon Mateer had a quality day. 3 catches, 22 yards, 8 yards was the long. I know that doesn't sound great, but it was okay. The problem is there was a lot of missed opportunity in this game. And there were several passes that I felt Shimon should have been able to bring in. He also was tackled at the 1 yard line, and I thought he got in. I thought he scored a touchdown, but unfortunately they did not review it. And then I believe Sam Levitt scored the touchdown on that drive. So that's the other thing that I am factoring into this grade is, as far as I'm concerned, Shimon Mateer scored a touchdown. They got a touchdown on the drive anyways, but Mateer scored as far as I'm concerned. So it was a decent day. Nothing too crazy. 75 out of 100 here. Finally, the offensive line, they got the worst grade from me. I still gave them a D+. I gave them a 68 out of 100. They really struggled at the point of attack. And the line of scrimmage was controlled by Texas Tech in this game. It was very difficult for Scadaboo to find running lanes, which resulted in, I think it was like 3.3 yards per carry, somewhere in that ballpark. Sam Levitt was fine. He was under duress. There was a lot of pressure in his face. And again, he only took 1 sack, but he was constantly having to move around. And that's something that the Sun Devils just have to improve, is finding ways to make consistent pockets for him. And it also falls on Levitt to be able to stand in the pocket. It's twofold. It's not just the offensive line, which is why I'm not willing to grade them any lower than that, because they're fine right now. With the depth there, they should be much better, but it's fine. That's getting it done for the most part. You still scored 3 touchdowns on the ground. Pretty good. So giving them the lowest grade of all the position groups here, still a 68 out of 100, nothing too dreadful. Let's go ahead and flip over to the defensive side of the football. We're going to take a look at all 3 levels of that unit. Coming up next, this is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. 5 Hour Energy is one of the sponsors that we have here today. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast, whether you have a long list to do for work or a list of DIY projects at your home. Take a 5 Hour Energy shot so you can check off everything off that list. If you're like me, you always have a large list of projects to do at home. When you get your supplies for the project, don't forget the most essential supply, which is that 5 Hour Energy shot. With 0 sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting work done. The 5 Hour Energy website has flavors galore, including watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and more. There's a flavor for everyone, or you can try them all, because on the site you have the option to build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. You choose the flavors, it's delivered right to your door. If you go to 5hourenergy.com, and that's the number 5hourenergy.com, get some 5 Hour Energy product today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB and get 20% off your order. Now, keep in mind, the offer is only valid until September 30th, and it cannot be used with other promotions. The code is also not good on subscription orders. So go to 5hourenergy.com. That's the number 5hourenergy.com today. Use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB. Get 20% off of your order. Wherever you're getting your shows, hit like, hit subscribe, and turn on those notifications so you get that update whenever we post new content. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks to all of you for making us your first listen of the day. Let's take a look at the 3 levels of the defense and how they did in this game. Defensive line, linebacker, and the secondary as a whole. Let's start with the defensive line. I gave them a firm C, 75 out of 100. I thought it was a decent day for the defensive line. I don't think they got absolutely manhandled in this game. They allowed, I think, 3.7 yards per carry, somewhere in that ballpark, for all of the running backs, or all the ball carriers, I should say, that Texas Tech had. 36 carries, 136 yards in that game. The longest run was only 25 yards. So for the most part, they were able to kind of keep everything in front of them. But similar to the offensive line, I thought that the defensive line did not win the point of attack in this game. And that's where you had a guy like Taj Brooks. Now, keep in mind, Taj Brooks, one of the best kept secrets in the country, and one of the 3, no worse than 5 best running backs in the Big 12, still had a big day. I made the bold prediction going into the game on the game day preview that ASU was going to find a way to keep him under 100 rushing yards. That was not meant to be. He ends up going for 117 yards on 27 carries. So, I mean, he got a workload and 4.3 yards per carry. Nothing crazy. It was fine. Now, keep in mind, out of the 136 rushing yards you allowed, he had 117 of them. You contained everything else. Cameron Dickey, 3 carries, 24 yards, but he had a long of 16. So, big chunk play. Jacoby Williams, 2 carries, 7 yards. Jalen Conyers, former Sun Devil, 1 carry, 3 yards. It was near the goal line, so he was able to get into the end zone. And then you took away Baron Morton as a runner. Now, granted, he's not a dual threat quarterback, but you sacked him once, and even with 1 sack, you kept him in the negative rushing yards. 3 carries, negative 15 yards. He only had a long of 4 yards. So overall, you kept them under 4 yards per carry in this game, and Taj Brooks was really the one who did the most damage. But I still feel like Texas Tech won the battle in the trenches in that game, which is the difference for me here, which is why I'm giving the defensive line 75 out of 100, a firm C. Linebackers, I'm grading them a little bit higher, and I'm giving them a firm B with an 85 out of 100. Now, similar to the defensive line, I thought that they were able to contain a lot of the big plays. They didn't really get too much in the run game that really killed them, outside of Taj Brooks having a handful of chunk plays and Cameron Dickey having the 16-yard run. The linebackers did a really good job making sure that nothing broke out for huge gains. And ASU still hasn't given up that 50, 60-yard run yet. And that's a lot to do with the play of the linebackers, especially Keyshawn Elliott, who, once again, we're not surprised because he's done this all year, had a phenomenal performance for the team. He ended up finishing tied for first on the team in tackles with 9. Now, he did finish technically third behind Xavion Alford and Miles Rouser because he only had 2 solo tackles. Alford and Rouser both had more solo tackles than him, but he was still flying around the field. He was still making plays, and I would tell you that he really carried the performance here. Caleb McCullough, decent day, 4 tackles, 4 yards. Jordan Crook made an appearance, and he looked good coming off of injury. It was nice to get him on the field. He made 3 tackles in this game. Oh my goodness. Zaire Fiaseu, I don't know that he recorded a stat. There he is. Of course he did. 4 tackles in this game. Quality performance all around from the linebacker position. It was really nice to have Crook back in the lineup for the team. I thought this was a decent game for them, and I'm giving them a little bit higher of a grade here, especially for the performance of Keyshawn Elliott, who I won't say he carried the unit, but he definitely impacted their grade for me. 85 out of 100, a rock solid B. The secondary, one of my lower grades, but nothing too dramatic. I gave him a C minus, and I gave him a 71 out of 100. So my thinking with the secondary is you are really banged up at corner right now. You are missing some of your key guys, including LT Welsh. You have really young and unexperienced guys, and you are counting on Keith Abney and Javen Robinson to hold down starting roles, and they have not really had to do that in the entirety of their careers. They also are playing over 90% of the snaps, so they're going to get a little tired. It just happens. Fatigue is going to set in for these guys, and that's what we ended up seeing in this. It happens. All things considered, I thought Javen had a pretty solid day. Abney, I personally lean on he had a good day on the opposite of a bad day. There was a lot to work on. I still thought he was solid. With all things considered, I thought Abney was solid at worst. Now, he got absolutely hosed by the refs on a BS, call it what it is, a BS pass interference penalty. It was terrible. Abney has every right to the football the same way that the receiver does. The ref decided he didn't see it that way. And people are going to see that and they're going to go, oh, well, he got penalized. And it's like, well, if you watch the game, it shouldn't have been a penalty. They played solid. The safeties, once again, quality days. You had Xavier Alford and Miles Rouser both tie for the team lead in sacks, oh my goodness, with tackles with 9. Alford had 6 solo. Rouser had 4 solo. Rouser also had a sack. Rouser had probably the most frustrating play of the game. He had a taunting penalty on the sack, and you're sitting there and you're like, dude, you know better. You know better. And it's really unfortunate. But, I mean, I understand because I am also that ish when I make a big play, which is almost never. But when I do, I talk. I 100% do. Like, you got beat by Richie Bradshaw. Dude, you stink. So I know that Rouser is back there talking, but you've got to be smarter and understand the situation, especially when a ref is 3 feet away from you. So that was really frustrating. Nonetheless, he still played a good game. Shamari Simmons played very well as well. 7 tackles, 6 of them solo, also at a TFL. He continues to be arguably the best player on the defense right now. He's just phenomenal, man. He was a team MVP last year for a reason. He continues to just be a stud. Now, I really do think that in this scenario, the safeties picked up the slack for the corners to save them on what could have been a lower grade. But I'm doubling down that the corners played solid, all things considered, with Javen and with Keith Abney having to play 90% of the snaps. They're going to get tired, but it's the situation that they're in right now. Thankfully, your top 3 safeties are playing at a super high level, which was able to kind of alleviate some of the pressure that was on Abney and Robinson. It was a okay day. They surrendered 201 passing yards on 44 attempts. That's pretty good when you consider the high volume that Texas Tech likes to produce in their passing game. Solid day, not the best day in the world. 71 out of 100, a C-. It could have been a lot worse, but it wasn't. Let's go ahead and wrap up this edition of the Sun Devils podcast as we hop over to the coaches, Kenny Dillingham, Marcus Arroyo, Brian Ward, and then wrap it up with the overall team grade of this team. That's coming up next. It's the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hey there, NFL fans. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, you can view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And that way you know exactly what you feel like doing. You can get started as well with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to get started, America's #1 sportsbook. One last time, wherever you're getting those shows, hit like, hit subscribe, turn on those notifications so you get that update whenever we post new content. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. A special shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Let's wrap this up and talk about the 3 coaches, how they did in this game, and the overall grade for the Sun Devils. Kenny Dillingham, C-. I'm giving him a 73 out of 100. They have got to be more disciplined. They have got to really stop making the dumb decisions that result in penalties. Like, it wasn't just Rouser's taunting penalty in this game. there were several decisions that were made on both sides of the football that just need to be better. Now, I also want to give some lenience here because it was a ref show. And the Zebras were all about throwing that laundry in the game. And it was really frustrating because Texas Tech got hosed too. They had 9 penalties. ASU had 8 penalties. Refs were having a good day. They were having a really, really fun day, just tossing the yellow flag around and making life hell for everybody else. You still need to find a way to get these guys more grounded. Against Wyoming in week 1, I think they were penalized 3 times and 2 of them were delay games. Get back to that. Get back to where against Wyoming, where the Cowboys were getting frustrated, ASU kept their cool. They were cool, calm, collective in that game, and it led to Wyoming getting taken apart, by the refs. Find a way to get back to that. And I think that starts with Kenny Dillingham being able to get in these guys' ears and say, hey, y'all need to stop being stupid and start being dialed in. They also need a better game plan out the gate. I appreciate the adjustments, and there's a lot of credit that needs to be given to Dilly as well as the coordinators for being able to make adjustments when opposing teams start having success. What they did against Texas State, phenomenal stuff. There's a reason why you were able to pull away late in that game, and it's because of the changes that you made at halftime. You cannot continue to lean on adjustments. You need to come out the gate and not dominate. You'd prefer them to dominate, but you need them to come out the gate with a more competent plan and one that doesn't need to be entirely switched up and changed within the first quarter of the game. And it felt like that's what the Sun Devils had to do. First 2 drives on defense, Texas Tech went down the field, scored a touchdown. After that, the defense bit down, clamped down, played good. The offense struggled out the gate. They started to figure it out a little bit. You need to be able to do that from the start of the game. You can't go a whole quarter not putting up points on the board and allowing 2 touchdowns and expect to win football games. And that's what happened in this game. So need a more consistent game plan out the gate. Kenny still calls a good game and definitely has this team ahead of where they were. You just got to be able to be consistent. You need to be closer to what you were against Wyoming than what you were in this game. 73 out of 100, C-. Marcus Arroyo, I'm giving him the same grade. 73 out of 100 is C-. The deep ball is not there. And while I'm not saying you need to completely get rid of it because you still need to be able to test the secondary every once in a while, you need to understand that the strength of this team is running the football and hopefully being able to attack the middle of the field where we have seen Sam Levitt have success. My goodness. You need to have that consistency with wanting to use the strengths of this team. You also need to have consistency with the way that you approach run the pass. It was fine in this game, 38 passes to 38 runs. You also consider ASU was trailing in most of this game, which is why they're airing the ball out more. I just would prefer it to be a lot closer to 50-50, or if you're going to lean one side or the other, the running game. But again, I understand the script that you were given was you had to throw your way back into this game. So I'm not going to punish Arroyo super hard on that. To me, it's just play to your strengths a little bit more. Side note, we need to get the running back room healthy. As great as Cameron Scadaboo is, he needs some help. He needs to be able to get spared from time to time to keep him fresh. Once you get healthy, I trust Arroyo to be able to do that, which is why this has nothing to do with his grade. I'm just, little side note, you got to get healthy, man. So 73 out of 100, C-. Brian Ward, I'm going 83 out of 100 for a B-. They were fine. Now, the defense was quality, but when they couldn't get off the field, that's where you got just brutalized. And Texas Tech had some really good drives in this game. And especially out the gate when they went down the field twice for touchdowns, you've got, similar to what I said about Kenny Dillingham, you need to be able to have a consistent game plan out the gate adjustments are awesome, and Brian Ward has made really good adjustments this year. You can't consistently rely on having the adjustments. The defense has shown you that they can dominate right out the gate. We saw that in the first 2 weeks. Now you just need to be able to implement that. You did the most of what you could with the beat-up corner position, which also affected Ward's grade. It made it a little bit higher because when you look at how depleted they are at that position right now, and they were still able to get quality play from Abney and Robinson, he deserves some credit there. Last thing, they got to control the line of scrimmage a little bit better. They've been good about that for most of the year. The last 2 weeks, it hasn't been the best. Against Texas Tech, they got exposed a little bit. And again, they made adjustments to be able to clamp down when they needed to. There's a reason Texas Tech only scored 30 points instead of 50 points. Because without the adjustments, Texas Tech is scoring 50 points in this game. So solid performance, 83 out of 100. Overall grade for this team, average at about a 76. So a C+ overall. They learned a lot from this game. And that's why a C+ is a win for the Sun Devils. Because even though they struggled on offense, on defense, and coaching, and discipline, and big plays, and all sorts of stuff, there was still a lot of positive to take from this game. This was a humbling loss for sure. But it wasn't a devastating loss. It hurt our feelings because we wanted to go 12-0. We wanted to start the year 4-0, 5-0. Didn't happen, and that's okay. Overall, about a 76 to 77 out of 100, C+ for this group. What do you guys think? Am I being too harsh in my grades? Am I being spot on? Am I being too generous in my grades? Let me know what you think in the comments. You can always hit me up on Twitter as well. You can find me at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Wherever you're getting your shows, though, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate each and every single one of you for tuning in and making Locked On Sun Devils your first listen of the day. I appreciate especially my everydayers who are here every day. We will be back again tomorrow as we take a look at what we have learned about this team through the first 4 games of the year. Things that we have seen and a little bit more. I'll see you guys tomorrow to have that conversation. Until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.